Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. Today I'm joined by Jonas Berg Johnson to discuss the upcoming Fantasy Eliteserien season. This Norwegian top flight fantasy game is made by the same team that created the English Fantasy Premier League game, and it kicks off on March the 30th. Jonas, welcome. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. And thanks so much for sparing some time to have a chat with us about this game. Now, a lot of our readers on Fantasy Football Scout will be familiar with this game. It really took off last year. We suddenly had loads of all our community articles about it. We had suddenly had loads of hits coming from Norway for it, and it spurred some people on to spread the word. So we think there's going to be a lot more UK people playing the game. But of course, this is for everyone. Those that are perhaps new to the game and those that have already played it. Before we look at the game, could you briefly introduce yourself? And also, as part of that, explain what your involvement is with Fantasy Eliteserien.
Yes, I work as first and foremost as a TV reporter and host of Discovery Norway Eurosport, where we are the right holders of the Eliteserien in Norway. So most of my weekends from the late March until late November, I'm out doing interviews and hosting football matches all around Norway. And before that, I used to work in TV2, which is the right holders of the Premier League. So I spent 1 year, 2012, 2013, living in England, covering the Premier League. So been working with international and Norwegian football for almost a decade now. As a reporter.
You know your stuff, basically.
Yeah, while doing that, also playing a lot of fantasy and being involved with Fantasy Eliteserien since it was properly launched in the format as you know with FPL 2 seasons ago, and been heavily involved with setting up squads, contact with all the clubs about positioning of players and also pricing.
Okay, so now you spoke about pricing. Now for those that have been playing the game already, they'll notice a change this season in terms with the pricing. I understand from last season there was a lot of out of position players, and that's kind of been rectified, but also pricing as well. Some of the smaller teams, as it were, the unfancied teams, actually were very, very good value, but that's not the case this season, I understand. So what's been the change?
No, it's a slight difference there because obviously, as if you have played the Eliteserien version of the game, the biggest difference I would say from Premier League to Eliteserien is that you can't really trust the greatest, most expensive assets of the top clubs because it's harder to predict which of the top clubs that will actually succeed. It's not like the top six where you know pretty much who will end up there in the Premier League. So that means that we had the two top scorers in the Eliteserien were actually from Stabæk and Strømsgodset, who finished 13th and 14th, which you would never see, I guess, in the Premier League. Leicester, so you never know. But anyway, and that means that also it hasn't been that important to have all the most expensive players in your team, which we have tried to kind of balance the pricing as in FPL, the two first seasons, but we have just realized that it doesn't work like that because the Eliteserien is so unpredictable. So that means that we have changed the way of pricing, making everybody a little bit more expensive from teams that are not expected to be top 2, top 3 in the table. So that's pretty much the difference.
So it makes it harder to go bargain hunting this season.
Yeah. Potential bargains that we don't know, that are new to the league, that comes from Swedish or Danish or African leagues. It's hard to predict, obviously, but those are priced at 6.5, 7.5 instead of 5.55. So it makes all those kind of players a little bit more expensive, and also players that we saw last year playing for not the best clubs, but doing very well on their own, they are also higher priced. So it will be harder to find bargains, but there will definitely be bargains this season as well.
And also the some of the out of position gems of last season, particularly those listed as defenders and ended up being wingers and attackers. You've had a look through those
Yeah.
as well, noted that.
Erik Tønne from Ranheim and Gilly Rolandsson in Brann, most famously, are now put up in midfield. We knew, yes, last year when we put them there that they might be playing more as wingers than left backs, but we decided it's fun to have a couple of our out of position players anyway. So they are changed to midfield, makes them maybe not as interesting as last year, especially Gilly Rolandsson, but I think Erik Tønne, Ranheim only had 4 clean sheets last year anyway, so it wasn't for the clean sheet points that you got him. So I think he might be interesting anyway. But Gilly Rolandsson for sure is less interesting this year than last year.
Okay, so yeah, this is going to be tougher for managers, but the gems will be there. No doubt they are. Especially like in FPL, we have to hunt out those gems. They don't appear.
And there are always a couple of big surprises in the Eliteserien, teams that are doing much better than expected and so on. And suddenly players out of nowhere, not having goals and assists in previous seasons, suddenly starts to produce. So you never know.
Now you also play FPL, the English FPL as well, and like seemingly everyone in Norway this season, you're rather good at it. You're currently ranked in the top 3,000, and you have 2 top 500 finishes and a further 2 in the top 1,500 across a 10-year career. Which do you prefer? Bit of a hard question for you because your involvement with Eliteserien, but hand on heart, which do you prefer and which why? Or are there good points to both?
I think if you took away one of them for the rest of my life, I would be missing the FPL version the most because it's throughout the whole year, almost from July until May, and the Eliteserien is the season is shorter, and the tradition obviously go way further back with the FPL. But I really enjoy doing both, and I think the interest in the Eliteserien for a lot of fantasy players are increasing because of the game. Because we had other kinds of fantasy manager games for Eliteserien before, but not in the FPL format, and that has really helped working with ISM and evolving this game for Eliteserien as well. So,
as you said, it's the makers, the makers of the FPL also do Eliteserien fantasy. Now that's good news for those looking to adopt the game who are so familiar with FPL, and as you said, and that's going to increase its popularity. It's just that ease, you understand it. So, I mean, with that in mind, what are the main similarities between the English FPL and Eliteserien?
Basically, 99% is the same. It's just different league, different players, and as I said earlier, a little bit more unpredictable when it comes to the top teams. But other than that, it's pretty much nailed on the same. But there's a couple of differences, obviously, because you can't use the same chips as in FPL because they are locked to the English version.
No. So I'm going to put a picture up of the chips here. So you have different chips. You still have chips, but you have different ones. And they got some great names. Attack.
Yes.
2 captains, and my favourite, Rich Uncle. So tell me about each of these chips. What do they do?
Attack is that all your 3 strikers are captain in one game week. 2 captains is pretty easy. You have 2 captains instead of 1. And Rich Uncle is like a free hit, but with unlimited budget for 1 game week.
Wow.
So that means you pretty much put in whoever you want, maximum 3 for each team, but you can have a budget of 150 million if you'd like. So that's a good one.
That is a good one. Now I'm in the middle of playing my free hit chip in FPL at the moment, and I wish I had a Rich Uncle in order to...
Hurricane into the mix as well with the game week there, so it's difficult.
So now the Rich Uncle's new, and that replaced the Park the Bus chip. What was the Park the Bus chip? And
was a Mourinho inspired chip we introduced last year. I really liked it because you had 5 captains all playing in defense. I would prefer that we put it on also for this season, but we had a discussion about it, and last year with a couple of double game weeks in the early part of the season, it made really significant differences in point score. So people not being aware of that it was a great time to play the Park the Bus chip in game week 4, game week 6. They ended up like 100 points behind. And when you're doing that from almost the start of the season, it makes people fall off, because there's a lot of people playing that are not necessarily 100% fantasy geeks. So that was a little bit of a we lost quite a few people because they lost interest.
From what I hear from those who were playing, they say it was too powerful.
Yeah, pretty much. And we had a perfect storm there with Brann keeping a couple of clean sheets and Wormgård and Gille Rolandsson and a couple of other players having goals and assists, and so it was a perfect storm really. But when we saw that they're going to be a double game week coming up already in round 2 this season, we decided to not go for it because we didn't want the same experience as last year.
The bonus is different as well. We have quite a complicated system in FPL, really, looking at the different criteria and based on all the kind of tackles and passing and creating chances. It's different in Eliteserien. How is the bonus calculated there?
We discussed quite a few ways to do it, but we don't have the same numbers of Opta as FPL has, so we decided to go with that our commentators and experts would give out 3, 2 and 1 bonus point.
The famous man in the stand.
Exactly. So that means that it would be more players that do not necessarily have clean sheets or goals assists to them that will get bonus points. And also sometimes you could, this guy is commentating, he's always giving bonus points to this player or this player. So we had actually last season one of our commentators was commentating Start, who got relegated unfortunately, and he gave this bonus points always to a player called Love, a defender in Start. I don't give. I'm only a reporter, so I don't give the bonus points. And I like it not to give out bonus points because good. I obviously have a team, and if I gave bonus points to my own players, I wouldn't like that. So.
No, that's good. I just wanted to check. There's some other differences as well. The calendar as well, and the weather. There's more. Would I be correct in saying there's certain teams where it's more likely the weather may impact on their games? There could be a blank game week for them, and therefore they would have a double game week somewhere along the line.
Yeah, last year was crazy stuff because the season started a couple of weeks earlier than this year, and the winter was really heavy and long, and we also had some troubles with Ranheim, one of the newly promoted teams, that their artificial grass wasn't good enough to play on and so on because their heating wasn't working properly. So we had a little bit of a chaotic opening last season, but I think this year, when it starts around the 1st of April, it should be okay all over the country, and that we should have game weeks that are not changed from the beginning. The reason we have a double game week in game week 2 is that in the summertime, Molde, Brann and Rosenborg and Haugesund are going to European qualification. That means that the Norwegian Federation have decided to give them an opportunity to move a couple of games from that summer period to be 100% focusing on the European participation. No,
you've anticipated my next question, which was round 2 has this double game week. Why is that? So to do with that European involvement there as well.
They moved it quite a couple of months, actually, 3 months almost.
Right. Okay, that's good because obviously, would there be further double games if these teams progressed any further?
I already seen that in game week 17. It's been one change that Sarpsborg versus Molde is moved to game week 15, which is the round that Molde already had removed their match from 15 through game week 2. So there's a change there. So Sarpsborg has a double game week in game week 15. That's all we know so far, but it might be more changes. We don't know yet.
One other change I wanted to make note of was I was looking through when you're choosing the players, same format as in FPL, the transfer page, and you look at the statistics. And there's, as you would expect, the usual about goals and assists and clean sheets. Then I saw this one, expected points next round. Now I thought that's handy. I wish FPL had that. How is that calculated, and how accurate can it be?
Good question. I have nothing to do with those stats actually, but I think it's just something calculated by based on stats, form, opposition, and so on.
Well, like Fantasy Football Scout's Rate My Team tool, really, we look at the chances of a clean sheet, for example, the chance of a particular player scoring,
exactly,
and those kinds of. So there's an algorithm there. Which probably under wraps, and it's probably too complicated to explain anyway.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make note of that because that is a gem of an item, and
an easy way out if you are not sure what to do.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. Now, looking at players, I think this is the bit where those that are new to the game will go, "Who do I pick?" And then also those that are familiar with the game thinking, I wonder who Jonas is picking. So what we're going to do is we're going to put your team up. It's an early draft of your team. Now I'll go through them because we're doing this as a podcast as well as the video. You got Rosbach in goal from Odd, Melling from Rosenborg, Adekugbe from Vålerenga, Wormgård from Brann, Rashani from Odd. And in Rashani's in midfield. Finney, is it Finn or Finney?
Finne.
Finn and Charlotte, both from Vålerenga, in midfield as well. And completing your midfield four that you're hoping to start with is Knutsen. Is it Knutsen from Molde?
Knutsen, yeah, Knutsen.
Strand Larsen up front from Sarpsborg. Moss there from Strems Godset, if I pronounced that correctly, hopefully. And
pretty much.
That'll do. And Bolly from Stabæk as well. And you've got, I think you said in your email to me earlier, quite a cheap bench, which may indeed change. Arnebrot from Viking, Pereira from Viking. Viking sound like a good place for bargain hunting. And Diop from Kristiansund, and Sell from Mergendalen. But I wanted to highlight some of those there. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you've gone in for 6 players with a double game week in game week 2, but you haven't gone totally to town on it. So you obviously, like some of the players, you want to have double game week coverage, but you haven't gone absolutely to the max for it. Because is that because you feel that those teams and the players from those teams are good, but you really don't want to, completely and utterly load up on those players?
No, the thinking about this draft is if I do the rich uncle in game week 2, which means that because the thing about rich uncle is that then you have to load up on Brann, 3 players, Molde 3 players, at least 2 from Vålerenga, maybe 3, and maybe then a couple of 2 from Kristiansund. And it's perfectly fine to do that without doing the rich uncle and use maybe attack instead, so you have 3 strikers as captains. But there's a couple of reasons why I'm leaning towards not doing that, and that is one, both Molde and Brann has tough games in game week 1 and 3 and to some point game week 4. That means loading up on players from those teams will, in my opinion, not give you as many points in game week 1, 3, and 4 as would defend picking them for the double game week 2. And there's also a lot of uncertainty around the fitness of Leke James, the star striker in Molde. He hasn't been playing that much. Erling Knutson, the one I have in midfield from Molde, is playing striker at the moment, but it's a little bit uncertainty how they will line up. And the same with Brann. Bouli, which came from Kristiansund last summer, scoring a lot of goals there. He is a good striker, but he hasn't been firing on all cylinders in Brann, and Brann have 2 home games against deep-lying opposition in Game Week 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to go that direction either. And it's a lot of other interesting assets as Rashani, Strand Larsen, Moss, Boli, and a few others that are not in my draft as well. That might be very handy to have in Game Week 1 and 3 and also 4. That means that in this way I'm optimizing my team for 1, 3, and 4, and also are able to have a look at Game Week 1 matches to see Molde, Brann, Vålerenga, to see which of them that are most likely to go onto my team for Game Week 2. So by one round of watching and having a look at the form of players, and it also makes it possible to get in a couple of Rosenborg players, even though they only have 1 match in Game Week 2. They have a home game against Odd, which they usually beat like 2-3-0. They very often have a clean sheet in those matches. So I'm gonna maybe put in a couple of Rosenborg defenders and goalkeeper, and maybe a midfielder, in addition to the Molde and Brann and Vålerenga players, because I don't think Kristiansund will get too many points in that double game week.
So
that's pretty much the thinking.
Yeah, I was thinking with as with FPL, and this is why it would appeal to FPL managers. It's that strategy as well. It's that thinking in advance and looking at blocks of fixtures, and you're looking at that one here, and you're blessed with a double game week in Game Week 2. So you've got to maximise your potential there, but not forget about the other ones.
Exactly, and if you do that and you build an Excel sheet where you can put in your long-term strategy thinking, that will be really handy and give you an advantage compared to many Norwegians that are obviously more familiar with the players and the league, but do not necessarily have the same strategy level when they're playing it. But the thing, as you said, I have 6 players in this draft that also has a double game week, so it might feel a little bit like throwing away a chip if I have 8 or 9. Maybe if I could squeeze in 8 or 9 in my team, it will feel a little bit like a waste of the rich uncle chip if I go that direction. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to land on that strategy, but we'll. Because I was discussing it with my partner Vegard, we have a podcast together. We're going to discuss this in a podcast tomorrow. We haven't decided yet. We haven't, but it's difficult, I would say.
Okay,
it's a big decision. It's a big decision.
Yeah, I was going to say there's some other players. I was talking to my colleague at Fantasy Football Scout, Jeff, who played last year, and he's one of the many FPL managers who's become hooked to Fantasy Eliteserien. And he mentioned some other players, some that you've already in your team as well. So here's some of the ones, and obviously feel free to chip in. But in goal, Rosenborg's keeper Hansen, you mentioned you might perhaps go there. Is Hansen the nailed number 1? And is he worth his 7 million price tag?
Yeah, that's a good question. When we decided to put the 7 million price tag on him, that was because we felt that if he was 6.5, everybody would go that way. Now he's priced on 7, and still 29% of all players have chosen him on their team. And that's a lot in my opinion, because not only is he's the most secure way to get clean sheets, he also has a lot of saves actually and bonus points as well, because he's by far the best keeper in the game. And Rosenborg, even though they are the favorite of retaining their championship, they are not as good as they were a couple of years ago. That means they are actually allowing a lot of chances. So he is a good pick if you are able to find money elsewhere, because I think 7 is a little bit expensive from start, because the Rosenborg program is a little bit tough. So I wouldn't go that way, but in the long run, Hansen would be the highest scoring goalkeeper this season for sure.
I mean, from what you described there, that sounds like a potential perfect storm that in FPL we always hope that David De Gea will have. In that they'll get the clean sheets, but also the saves. In recent seasons, he's been backing up the saves, but Manchester United haven't been keeping the clean sheets. But it sounds like Rosenborg could have that perfect storm for him. Another goalkeeper that's
like a player. The year of 17-18 season.
Okay, that's a lot of potential there. Another keeper, McDermott, from Christiansund, and now he's got a double fixture as well. He's only 5 million. Now people have been talking about him. Is he a good option? Do you think, or do you think Christiansen will?
If he can keep up his ratio of saves and bonus points, you usually also have a penalty save or two throughout the season. But the reason he's only 5 is that Kristiansund only had 6 clean sheets both last year and in 2017.
Okay.
So you can't really rely on getting any clean sheets there. It's so that's why. But if I would not go for the rich uncle chip in game week 2, he would most definitely be my goalkeeper, I think, in game week 1.
So definitely a case of you get what you pay for. Melling in the Rosenborg defence among defenders, also 7 million. Look, you've got him in your team at the moment. It sounds like he could be a very sensible alternative to Hansen there to get those clean sheets. Does he get multiple points routes bonus, for example?
Yeah, he's a really offensive kind of guy. Can have both assists and goals, and also he's a very good player. So he's on bonus. And I would say both him and Tore Reginiussen, which is the other 7 million defender in Rosenborg, are the 2 best options there.
Okay. In midfield, Akintola, he's on loan from Midtjylland, from Denmark, on loan to Rosenborg again. Top scorer with 154 points last season. Sure. I mean, to me, I look at that and I've never seen him play. On paper, it sounds like a lock-in, but he's not in your team. Are you worried going without him?
He was in my first draft, and he might be in there if I go rich uncle in game week 2. But the reason I don't not have him is that Rosenborg have been really poor in preseason. His place in the team is 95%, but not 100, because they have a lot of wingers. Rosenborg. But obviously, last season he was fantastic. One of the hidden gems that we did not really expect to have such a great season. He came on loan to Haugesund without any track record that would say that he would score so many goals and have so many assists. He was playing in the Norwegian second division in 2017 without doing especially good, and he was brought in on loan, did fantastically well. 5.5 was his price then, and obviously the reason he moved to Rosenborg now on loan is that Haugesund lost their coach to Rosenborg, so he's one of the favorites of Eirik Horneland, who is the Rosenborg coach. So he will for sure be in my team at some point, maybe already in game week 2 if I use the chip. If not, he will be in there later on. So he's going to get a lot of points, I think.
Anderson at Mold as well. Is it another good one, or one to watch?
Eirik Andersson, he has been struggling with an injury throughout the preseason, so I would go without him for the first.
Okay,
but he's on set pieces and would be a great asset at some point. But Molde has so many midfielders that are interesting, so that's one of the reasons I'll go without as many Molde players in the first round, to see who's the best, who's on best shape, and then put them in my rich uncle team for game week 2.
And one of the out of position stars of last season, Tern, have I pronounced that correctly?
Turner.
Yeah, he is now a midfielder, thanks to you and your colleagues. So he's no longer. Is he just? He's 6.5 in midfield. Is he still worth it getting in, or is he just a bit of a no-go now?
No, he definitely might be worth it. Yeah, at some point. Not from the start of the season for me, but already in the first home match against Tromsø, he could be on a goal and assist and 3 bonus. You never know, because Tromsø has been really poor defensively, and Ranheim are good at home, so you never know.
And you've got the Vålerenga midfield duo, Finney and Schala, as well. Now they're another two that Jeff recommended that I mentioned to you. No need, they're already in your team. Why are they such good assets to have?
Schala came in to start last summer, did really good for the team that struggled in the bottom half and ended up relegated. But he was a breath of fresh air for them. He has shown in the past that he has Eliteserie quality. Got a lot of assets and goals, and Finne as well. Now he's also a midfielder. He was a striker last year, so that makes him even more interesting. And I think Vålerenga are looking better than they have had a kind of a project the last couple of seasons, putting a lot of money in. Ronny Deila, the former Celtic coach there, and they have been disappointing in the last 2 seasons. But now I think they're getting into shape. Ajuke, also a good attacking midfielder, and Matte Williamson, a new striker from Rosenborg. So they have a quartet there of players that are really, really good Eliteserie players. So I think they will score a lot of goals. And Finne and Schala, they have been looking good in preseason. So that's why they're in my team. And also great schedules for the first. Both game week 1 and 3, and also obviously a double in game week 2. So that's why.
And just a final player to mention, Bolly at Stabæk. He's in your team. Another player that was recommended by Jeff to me to get in. He's expensive though, 10 million. But why is he such a good player to have?
He had, I think, 2 goals the first 14 games last season, and in the last 16 matches he had 15 goals. And that says pretty much everything.
Well, there we go.
That's for a team that ended up in qualification. That means they were 14th in the table of 16 teams. So top scorer in the league, one of the best goal scorers in the division. And Stabæk, he and his striking partner Ui, who close to be top scorer in 2017. The two of them scored almost 70% of Stabæk's goals last year. So they are pretty much putting in, all the goals that they are scoring. So last year it was 7.5, I think. Ended up being a great asset. So 10 million for a striker that might be struggling in the relegation zone sounds expensive, but he's gonna be up there this year as well, in my opinion.
So given that huge goal involvement with him and his strike partner, he sounds like a good captaincy option when the fixtures fall in their direction.
Yeah, home against Lillestrøm, perfect option as the captain.
Okay.
But there's actually quite a lot of good options for captain in the first game week. We have Strand Larsen, who I have in my team. He's just turned 19 years old. He's been in Milan a couple of seasons. Great talent, big guy, perfect for the Sarpsborg way of playing. He scored 11 goals in 11 preseason matches.
Okay, wow.
Then we have Moss scoring a lot of goals last year as well. He scored actually 9 last goals of Strømsgodset last year. Wow. 5 in the league and 4 in the cup. He scored all 9 last.
Okay.
And he's nailed on from start this season because they are going to play with 2 strikers. They did only 1 striker last year. And also the Vålerenga players Finne, Schala and Williamson, if you have him, could be great captaincy options as well. So it's a lot to choose from in that first game week.
Okay, lots to consider. Starts on the end of the month, end of March. Lots to consider then. But for now, Jonas, thanks so much for joining me. It's hopefully been enlightening to those that don't know about the game but are interested, and hopefully as well to those that already know the game and pick up some tips then on the players to select early on. But for now, Jonas, thank you and good luck in the first game week of the season.
Good luck with your drafts.
Cheers, thank you. Bye now.
Ciao, ciao.